So Lord Aberdeen's coalition to fight the Crimean War, which is one of the most bizarre wars even in our history, which I won't go into today, but most of the casualties, 90% of British casualties in the Crimea, were caused by illness, disease, frostbite, starvation, whatever. It was desperate. There was the Charge of the Light Brigade, you all remember. By the way, only 237 people were lost out of the 618. So it wasn't quite as bad as you think. A lot of them somehow got back. Anyway, just tackling just saying that. Basically, though, it was an absolute scandal. The Commander-in-Chief, Lord Raglan, used to forget who we were supposed to be fighting. He was still convinced we were fighting the French. But it was an absolute shambles. And a journalist called William Howard Russell was the first war correspondent. And he was at the front. He shouldn't have been, but he was. And he told the people in the Times what an absolute mess the army was in. Yeah. Well, in the end, there was a motion in the Commons by Sir John Arthur Roebuck, who was another MP that everybody liked, who was a thorn in the side of all governments. And his motion was that there should be an inquiry into the conduct of the Crimean War. This was a massive defeat. In fact, it was the largest defeat. I haven't written the numbers down. I might find them later. It was the largest defeat, I think, that any government had actually suffered at that point. At that stage, Lord Palmerston, who you remember, had brought down the Russell government, his own government. At that stage, Palmerston becomes Prime Minister, and at that stage, a group of MPs get together, 4 years later, 1859, and they form what was then, from that date onwards, known as the Liberal Party. We'll come back to that later, but there's just one more defeat of Lord John Russell to talk about, and this one is extremely complicated. 18th of June, 1866. The question was, Russell was defeated on reform by 315 to 304. Now, it's so complicated, this, that I don't really understand it. But it's politics. So basically then, the group that defeats Russell, because they don't think his reform bill is strong enough, they then defeat him, and then they pass a bill that's weaker than the one that he would have passed anyway. So it's an absolute mess, with parties facing both ways at once, and everybody comes out of it badly. Disraeli does, who was now joint leader of the Conservative Party. Palmerston does, and Palmerston had just died, I should say. And Gladstone, he comes out of it badly as well. It was an absolute shame. Not one of the best episodes in our political history. We now come to another vote, which I need to squeeze in. 1852, Lord Derby's minority Conservative government. Now, Lord Derby, the Knowsley family, the 14th Earl of Derby, 1799 to 1869, is a remarkable character. He had been involved in the defeat of the Peel government. He was now the leader of the Conservative government, of which Disraeli was his chief lieutenant. They took over in 1852. After the fall of the Russell ministry, they had a minority in Parliament, and so what happened was Disraeli, as the Chancellor, brought in a budget just around Christmas time of 1852. This is one of the most dramatic nights in the House of Commons history. A government defeated on its budget, they couldn't pass it. A remarkable speech by Gladstone, absolutely ruthless speech by Gladstone, who was by then going to be the coming leader of the Liberal Party, destroyed Disraeli. Gladstone had a superior mastery of facts on this occasion and of figures. Disraeli did not. Chancellor was probably the most unsuitable job for him. They were defeated and Lord Derby resigned the next day. Now, Lord Derby was unfortunate again. Because the Conservative Party was in a weak situation as regards numbers, he found himself again in a minority government when the new Liberal Party had been established. The new Liberal Party, now under Lord Palmerston, waited for their chance. They added an amendment to the Royal Address saying, "We do not think the government commands a majority in this House." There was a 3-day debate, and on the 10th of June, 323 to 310, the government was out, and Lord Palmerston becomes Prime Minister for the last time. He dies in office in October 1865, allegedly having chased somebody, as I said before, up the House of Commons stairs.